Hey everybody, this is Amanda Tuttle. I was recording my video response for the Nursing 5036 Module 5 discussion board. This is actually our last discussion board for the semester, and I was glad to see that we were able to do it in kind of an alternative format, a little bit different than what we've done in any of the programs I've been in this semester. So a little bit different, a little bit fun. I'm kind of liking it so far. So, two different parts to address in this discussion board. First part being describing the characteristics of an effective nursing advisor with nursing students. And we are also discussing one of the dilemmas from the article, Faculty Roles, Dilemmas for the Future of Nursing Education and the Potential Impact on Nursing Education. So, for the first prompt of the discussion board, I chose to refer back to the article that was provided for us in the interactive activity for this module, the Schellenbarger and Hoffman article, the Advising 101 Lessons in Advising for Nursing Student Success article. They pointed out some very specific qualities that I thought that they were more specific for advisors within nursing programs versus just advisors for college students in general, that I thought were important to point out in this discussion post. One of the most important ones that they mentioned quite a few times in that article actually was the importance of knowing the ins and outs of the curriculum, or like just knowing the general layout of the program, the nursing program. It's important that if you're going to be advising students that are going through the nursing program, you need to know the normal progression, especially for all the different types of students. There's many different types of students that are going to be going through the programs. You have new grad students that are coming into the program fresh out of high school that have just finished their college prerequisites. You have adult learners that are returning to college that also have just finished their college prerequisites. You have LPN to RN students that might be joining on an accelerated program. And you may have students that are already in the nursing program that might have failed a semester that are on a repeat course. One of the second points that they make, the nursing advisors need to have familiarity, a very close familiarity with the nursing program policies and the differences compared to the campus's main policies. So usually the nursing program will have they'll have such different specificities on their policies, from like their grading to their dress codes, conduct, and consequences for students. They actually have their own specific student handbook for the nursing program. So not only do advisors in general need to know the ins and outs of the college's general handbook, nursing advisors need to know every page and all the specifics of the nursing program handbook and their policies, especially the differences in grading, dress code, whether it be for classroom setting, clinical setting, community activities, and the code of conduct in the same types of settings, code of conduct within the classroom, giving presentations in a clinical setting, all of those different things. They did have an entire few paragraphs dedicated to discussing interpersonal traits. They mentioned addressing your approachability and accessibility, meaning that it's important that these types of students feel like they're comfortable with approaching you with their issues, and that they feel like they're not going to be judged for coming to you with their problems. They're not going to be like yelled at or fussed at, and that you are available to them at their need. You're accessible easily. You're available, by of course not necessarily 24/7, but if you're able to provide specific office hours and availability in the student handbook or syllabus for their courses or anything like that, it's appropriate for you to be available in those hours that you outline specifically for those students. And of course, once you do set up meetings for those students, they talk about therapeutic communication techniques, active listening techniques, all of that stuff, just to make your students feel comfortable and feel like they're being listened to and that their issues are being taken seriously and that they feel open in communicating their concerns with their advisor. So one of the last characteristics that they talk about in this article that really stood out to me is the importance of knowing your advisee. So they make this point very specific to the nursing program, specific in that there's so many different tracks that nursing students can take. It's kind of difficult to know how to advise a nursing student if you don't know what their end goal in their career is. So you want to know how that student learns best for themselves. What is their learning style? Are they ready and willing to learn? What direction are they running towards? Are they wanting to work in a hospital setting one day? Are they leaning more towards hospice or palliative care? More towards surgery, pediatrics, home health? What direction are they running towards? It is important to know what your nursing student is passionate about and what things that they care about so that you can align your needs and their needs so that you can meet on the same page, more or less. To address the second part of this discussion post, the article that was posted, The Faculty Roles, Dilemmas for the Future of Nursing Education, they addressed 4 different dilemmas in that article. The one that stood out to me the most, which actually stood out to me because of my work with my preceptor in clinical this semester, was the one about the clinical track faculty. They write that, quote, "Clinical track faculty do not have the job security or the same rights as tenured faculty." That was written on page 4 of that article. So this article was written by Roberts and Glaude. That information will be posted in the references that I'll post with the YouTube link. So under that claim, they talk about clinical staff, meaning staff that are responsible for taking students into, clinical settings within hospitals or nursing homes, giving them that in-person experience in a skills setting, hands-on. They are at risk, at an increased risk for less job security and a higher risk for non-renewal of their current position, higher risk of termination because they're seen as more short-term and not as permanent staff as the ones that are on campus on a daily basis. They are often paid less salary. They could be given a higher workload with an increased class size, which I can absolutely vouch for. I've seen in many circumstances and heard from firsthand accounts during my clinical time of at Walter State, the facility that I was precepting with this semester. They consider their adjunct professors, or that's what they call some of their clinical instructors. They call them adjunct professors that strictly teach clinical at different hospital sites with Ballad and Tenova and Covenant. They have had some issues where they have come from different, I won't name specific colleges, but different educational facilities in which they were not given fair proportions of students, so that it was creating unsafe clinical settings for the instructor to student ratios, so that they they came to Walter State. They sought out Walter State because of their more fair student to instructor ratios and class sizes. They also state in this article, along with the lowered salary, less job security, higher workloads, increased class sizes, these staff members have a much lower voice, less say in activities that go on in the school. So let's say if they're having meetings about academic changes in the program, or just changes in the curriculum or things like that, they don't really have a say in the vote. They don't get the opportunity to voice their opinions or vote on any matters. Most of the time they are not notified of meetings or asked to attend meetings even. They don't really get to have an opinion, and these things can be extremely drastic as far as impacting nursing education in the future, especially being that the amount of staff in the nursing education field is dwindling, as far as I know or I've heard from staff that I've been speaking with. The less representation and fair treatment that we're giving to these clinical staff, the less staff we're going to have to educate these students in clinical settings. So, I mean, not saying that we have enough staff members to educate students as far as in the classroom, even, as we're dwindling in numbers for those staff members as well. But these students are going to be on the backside of this, the dwindling numbers of staff, nursing student educators. If there's not any job security for these clinical track faculty, there's not going to be any clinical track faculty to give the nursing students their clinical experience before they graduate. So this is going to require, in the future, graduate nurses are going to require longer and longer training sessions, which can really fatigue the nurses that are responsible for training these nurses, which can cause higher rates of burnout and nurse fatigue, and could possibly result in our new graduate nurses leaving the profession indefinitely. I've actually seen that in the hospital that I work at. We've had the graduate nurses that we've been receiving recently are coming off of the tail end of COVID college experiences, and we have had quite a few new graduates not really make it through their orientations because of the intensity of their training, their orientation, or just the sharp differences in what their expectations were. Or if they did make it through orientation, they did not stay very long after they left their orientation and were out on their own. So we really need to be supporting our nursing staff, our nursing education staff, not only in the classroom, but our clinical track faculty, our adjunct faculty, in getting our students their hands-on clinical education so that they can get these beginning inklings of critical thinking and clinical justification skills, kind of getting that information out of their fingernails to start working on that before they get into the hospital setting, so it's not such a brand new concept that it just overwhelms them and blows them out of the park. That kind of finishes up my post for this discussion board. I'll go ahead and write out my references and I'll post them alongside the YouTube link. Thank you so much.